Look at this vine. Right now, it's making a decision. It's choosing where to go, what to grab onto, how to find the light. But here's the kicker, it has no brain. No neurons. No central command. So how is this possible? Are we surrounded by a hidden form of intelligence we've completely misunderstood? Today, we're not just asking the question. We're auditing the evidence. Think about it. A gardener gently guides a climbing rose. A farmer checks the leaves on her corn, sensing a coming dry spell. A kid in a backyard watches a sunflower twist its head to follow the sun. These moments feel normal. Poetic even. But they hide a revolutionary idea, that things without brains, green, silent, and rooted, can sense their world, remember the past, and solve complex problems to survive. This isn't science fiction or mystical thinking. This is a journey into the hard science of what it really means to know something, and it will change the way you look at every tree, every blade of grass, forever. Alright, let's start with the basics. To make any kind of decision, you first need information. You need to sense the world. And plants are absolute masters of this. We have 5, maybe 6 senses. Plants? They have at least 20 distinct sensory systems. They are bathed in data from every direction, 24/7. Let's talk about sight. Forget eyes, plants have photoreceptors, which are basically microscopic solar panels, embedded all over their bodies. They don't just see light, they analyze it with incredible sophistication. They have different types of photoreceptors, like phytochromes and cryptochromes, each tuned to different wavelengths of light. This allows them to tell the difference between a long summer day and a short winter one, a crucial calculation for knowing when to flower or when to go dormant. This is called photoperiodism. But it gets crazier. They can sense the specific far-red light frequencies that bounce off a nearby plant. This tells them a competitor is moving in on their turf, casting a shadow. In response, they'll trigger a shade avoidance response, rapidly elongating their stems to outgrow their rival and win the race for sunlight. It's like having built-in spectral analysis goggles all over your body. Now touch. Plants don't have skin, but they feel everything. All over their leaves and stems are mechanoreceptors, exquisitely sensitive cells that detect pressure, texture, and wind. The slightest brush from a passing animal, the landing of an insect, the constant push of the wind, it's all registered. A single caterpillar chewing on a leaf is not just a local problem. The plant feels the specific vibrations of that chewing. In fact, some studies have shown that playing a recording of caterpillar chewing vibrations to a plant will cause it to start producing defensive chemicals, even with no caterpillar present. This sense of touch also directs their growth in a process called thigmomorphogenesis. A tree growing on a windy ridge will grow shorter and thicker, with a stronger root system, than its sheltered cousin in the valley. The constant mechanical stress is a signal to invest in defense and stability rather than height. A vine's tendril, in a process called thigmotropism, can feel a trellis and coil around it with precise, calculated movements. And then there's smell and taste, or chemoreception. Plants have chemical sensors that are constantly sniffing the air and tasting the soil. They release a complex language of chemical signals called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, into the air. You know that smell of freshly cut grass? That isn't a pleasant aroma for the grass. It's a chemical scream, a distress signal telling other parts of the plant and its neighbors that it's under attack. When one plant gets attacked by aphids, it can release a specific VOC that travels through the air. Its neighbors pick up that signal and immediately start producing defensive chemicals to make their own leaves taste bitter and toxic. They get the warning before the enemy even arrives. Some parasitic plants, like the dodder vine, can actually smell their preferred host from a distance, growing directly towards the unique chemical signature of a tomato plant while ignoring a less desirable wheat plant nearby. It's a silent, invisible war room of chemical intelligence happening all around us. And what about hearing? This is the frontier of plant science, and it's controversial. But some tantalizing research suggests plants might respond to sound. It's not hearing in the way we do with ears. Instead, it's about detecting vibrations. Studies have suggested that roots can sense the vibrational frequency of running water and grow towards it. Other research indicates that exposure to specific sound frequencies can alter gene expression and even improve growth rates. Again, this is early, debated research, but it opens a mind-bending possibility that the soundscape of an ecosystem could be another layer of information that plants are tuning into. They are drenched in information. But sensing is just the first step. What do they do with it all? So a plant senses danger on one leaf. How does it tell the rest of the plant, meters away, to prepare for battle? This is where it gets really mind-bending. For years, we thought plants were slow, communicating only through the gradual diffusion of chemicals. But we now know they have an information superhighway, and it's electric. Just like the nerves in your body, plants send electrical pulses through their vascular tissues, the phloem and xylem. These signals, called action potentials and variation potentials, are waves of ion exchange that travel across cell membranes. They aren't as fast as our myelinated nerve impulses, but they don't need to be. An action potential in a plant can travel at speeds of up to 10 centimeters per second, fast enough to send an alarm signal from a wounded leaf to the roots in just a matter of minutes. This triggers what's known as systemic acquired resistance, basically priming the entire plant's immune system. Imagine a Venus flytrap. An insect brushes one of its trigger hairs. Nothing happens. A single touch could be a false alarm, like a raindrop. But an electrical signal has fired and is held in a short-term memory. If the insect brushes a second hair within about 20 seconds, a second electrical signal fires. That's the confirmation. The trap slams shut in 1/10 of a second. That's not a simple reflex. It's a calculation based on processing distinct electrical inputs over time. The plant is counting and filtering data. This electrical network allows the entire plant to act as a single, coordinated unit. A threat in one location can trigger a systemic defense response everywhere. It's a distributed system, where information is processed not in one central brain, but across the entire organism. But electricity is only half the story. It's the fast, emergency broadcast system. The day-to-day governance, the long-term planning, is handled by a much slower, more nuanced system, hormones. Think of plant hormones as the civil service to electricity's special forces. You have auxin, the master architect, dictating where new roots, stems, and leaves should grow. You have cytokinins, the drivers of cell division, working in a careful balance with auxin to shape the plant's body. There's gibberellin, which shouts "wake up" to dormant seeds. Abscisic acid is the stress manager, telling the leaf pores, the stomata, to close during a drought to conserve water. And ethylene is the signal for ripening and ultimately, for old leaves to die and fall off gracefully. These chemicals flow through the plant, interacting with each other in a complex dance, creating feedback loops that control growth, development, and behavior over days, weeks, and seasons. The electrical system sends the alert. The hormonal system carries out the long, deliberate response. It's a two-speed government, perfectly adapted to a life lived on a different timescale. But sending signals is one thing. What about remembering them? If I say the word memory, you probably think of a specific event, a feeling, a picture in your mind's eye. That's narrative memory, and it requires a brain. Plant memory is different. It's not a story, it's a physical change. It's written into the very chemistry and structure of the plant. One of the most powerful mechanisms for this is called epigenetics. Think of a plant's DNA as a massive library, a complete instruction manual for everything it can possibly do. Epigenetics is like a set of sticky notes, highlighters, and paper clips that the plant uses to annotate that manual based on its life experiences. A plant goes through a serious drought. It survives, but just barely. In response to that stress, it adds tiny chemical tags, usually methyl groups, to the genes related to drought resistance. These epigenetic marks don't change the words in the DNA book, but they change how the book is read. It's like the plant is highlighting the emergency drought plan chapter and adding a sticky note that says, "Read this first and fast." The next time a dry spell begins, the plant doesn't have to search its entire library from scratch. It goes straight to the highlighted pages. Its response is faster, stronger, and more efficient. It produces the right proteins, closes its stomata, and conserves water more effectively because it remembers the last drought. This isn't a metaphor. It's a real, measurable molecular legacy of a past event. An even more profound example is vernalization, the memory of winter. Many plants, like winter wheat or tulips, need to experience a prolonged cold period before they can flower. The cold epigenetically silences a gene that acts as a floral break. When spring comes, that break remains off, allowing the plant to flower at the perfect time. The plant has to remember it went through winter to know that spring has arrived. And incredibly, sometimes these epigenetic bookmarks can be passed down to their seeds, giving the next generation a pre-highlighted survival manual, a head start in a tough environment. Memory is also structural. A root system isn't just a random tangle, it's a physical map of past successes and failures. It grows thicker and more complex in areas where it found rich nutrient patches and actively avoids areas where it found toxins or impenetrable rock. The very shape of a tree, the way it leans, the branches it has prioritized, the scars it carries from storms or fires, is a physical record of the life it has lived and the choices it has made. The rings of a tree are a diary written in cellulose, recording wet years, dry years, and major events. A plant's body is its memory, physically embodying its life history. So, plants can sense, they can communicate with electricity and chemicals, and they can remember through epigenetics and structure. Does all this add up to problem solving? To intelligence? Let's look at the evidence. Scientists have created underground mazes for plant roots to navigate. And time again, roots don't just grow randomly. They seem to find efficient paths, exploring and then abandoning dead ends to find a route to a reward of nutrients or water. Are they thinking their way through? Not like we do. They are using a simple, yet brilliant, distributed algorithm. Each of the millions of cells in the root tip is independently sensing local conditions. They follow a simple rule: grow where it's good, stop where it's bad. When millions of root tips all follow that simple rule, the emergent behavior is a highly effective, adaptive search strategy, a smart outcome without a central planner. It's a form of swarm intelligence, where the intelligence resides in the system, not in any individual part. Or consider the tiny pores on a leaf, the stomata. Each one is a microscopic mouth, and it has to solve a constant, life or death dilemma: open up to take in the carbon dioxide it needs for photosynthesis, but risk losing precious water to evaporation. Or close up tight to save water, but risk starving? Each of the thousands of stomata on a single leaf is constantly running this cost-benefit analysis, integrating signals about light, humidity, internal water levels, and CO2 concentration to find the perfect balance. That is complex, real-time problem-solving, distributed across the entire surface of a leaf. This brings us to the biggest, most inspiring, and most controversial idea of all. For decades, scientists like Suzanne Simard have been investigating the wood wide web. Most trees form a symbiotic partnership with underground fungi called mycorrhizae. These fungi create a vast, microscopic network of threads that connect the roots of different trees, even trees of different species. And through this network, things are exchanged. Carbon, water, nutrients, but also, potentially, information. Simard's pioneering experiments used radioactive carbon isotopes to trace the flow of resources. She showed that a large, central tree, what she controversially termed a mother tree, could send sugars to smaller, shaded saplings, keeping them alive. Even more startling, subsequent experiments have suggested that when one tree in the network is attacked by pests, defense signals can travel through the fungal network and warn its neighbors to ramp up their own defenses. Now, this idea is fiercely debated. Some critics argue that the mother tree narrative is an oversimplification, that the flow of resources might be passive, driven by simple concentration gradients rather than active, intentional sharing. They point out that competition is just as, if not more, prevalent in forests, and that the evidence for kin recognition and preferential treatment is still limited. It's a heated scientific debate. But whether it's active cooperation or passive facilitation, the fact remains: the forest is a network. It is not just a collection of individuals. It is an interconnected system for communication and resource management that operates on a scale we can barely comprehend. If the forest is a network, does it have a mind of its own? This is where we hit the wall. The idea of plant intelligence is both compelling and deeply problematic. The controversy isn't really about what plants do. We can measure the electrical signals, we can track the chemical warnings, we can sequence the epigenetic changes. The fight is about the words we use. Words like intelligence, memory, decision, communication. Critics, like biologist Lincoln Tez, argue that these words are loaded with human-centric baggage. Intelligence, for us, implies consciousness, intention, a brain. And plants, they argue, have none of that. What looks like a choice might just be the inevitable result of chemistry and physics playing out over time. Is a root deciding to turn, or is it simply that cells on one side are growing faster in response to a chemical gradient? Is it memory, or is it just a persistent molecular change that alters a future reaction? They argue that ascribing intelligence to plants is a form of anthropomorphism that undermines scientific objectivity. Proponents of the plant neurobiology field, even after renaming their society to plant signaling and behavior, fire back that this is just biological chauvinism. Why should a brain, a collection of neurons, be the only hardware capable of processing information? They argue we need to broaden our definition. Perhaps intelligence is a process, not a thing. It's the ability of any living system to take in information from its environment, integrate it, and use it to solve problems in a way that promotes survival and reproduction. If you define it like that, then plants absolutely qualify. Their problem-solving is distributed across their entire organism, embodied in their chemistry, their structure, their very form. It's a different kind of intelligence. Slower, greener, and completely alien to us, but intelligence nonetheless. And that's the beautiful, humbling takeaway. Trying to understand plants forces us to question our own definitions. It pushes us to consider ideas like embodied cognition, the theory that thinking doesn't just happen in a brain but is an interaction between a body and its world. It stretches our perception of time. A plant's decision to drop its leaves in autumn is a profound, life-saving calculation, but it unfolds over weeks. Is it less of a decision because it's slow? This forces us to confront our own cognitive biases and see that a mind might not have to be confined to a skull. It could be woven through a network of roots and fungi. A choice might not be a lightning-fast spark between neurons, but a slow, deliberate conversation between sunlight, soil, water, and genes, unfolding over a whole season. From the humble basil plant in your kitchen leaning toward the window, to the ancient, interconnected forest network trading resources beneath our feet, we've seen that plants are not passive decorations. They are dynamic, sensing, and responsive beings. They use electrical signals, chemical languages, and a form of molecular memory to solve the problems of their world with an elegance that we are only just beginning to appreciate. This isn't just a philosophical debate, it has profound practical implications. Engineers are looking to plants for inspiration in designing decentralized, resilient robots and sensor networks. In agriculture, understanding this secret language could lead to revolutionary new techniques. Imagine being able to use a plant's own warning signals to prime an entire crop against a pest without using a single drop of pesticide. Ecologically, recognizing the agency and interconnectedness of plants could fundamentally change how we approach conservation and forestry, moving from a model of resource extraction to one of ecosystem stewardship. And as AI and large language models like PlantGPT are developed to help analyze this incredible complexity, our understanding will only accelerate. Whether you choose to call it intelligence or sophisticated adaptive behavior, one thing is undeniable: the green world is profoundly more complex and alive than we ever imagined. It challenges our place at the center of the universe and invites us to look at the life around us with a new sense of wonder and maybe a new sense of responsibility. So now I have to ask you the big question we've been building to: based on what you've seen, do you believe plants are intelligent? There's no right answer, it's a huge debate. Just drop a simple yes or no in the comments below. I'm fascinated to see what our community thinks. And if you like getting straight answers to massive questions like this, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. We audit the science behind the universe's biggest questions every single day. Thanks for your time. Now, check out the video on your screen right now. I think you'll find it just as mind-blowing. See you over there.